we talked about the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, and I made videos about it ever since it's been a thing, and back in 2016 when it came around, when the legislator finally passed it. And one thing they didn't do is they didn't say anything about what caregivers are supposed to do with their overage. They basically set up two separate systems in Michigan. There's the Caregiver Patient Structured Medical Marijuana Act of 2008 that we've been living under for the last 10 years. And now there's this new thing, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, which sets up regulations and licenses for 5 different kinds of facilities. And I did do a video about how the application process was going pretty slow. So slow, it's boring, making people yawn. And the problem with that is that the application process itself is the most arduous thing I think I've ever heard of. The application is it pries into every aspect of the applicant's life to the point where it's like, I'm pretty sure if you want to get a job at the CIA, you could probably, just be like, hey, I passed the medical marijuana license in Michigan with my application. I got a license there, so, you should be able to do anything. They don't leave any stone unturned. So there's people that, have had existing dispensaries. Specifically, I usually am, when I'm talking about these licenses, I personally am just talking about dispensaries, because that's the only existing business that was there before that really got affected by this. Nothing else was an existing business, but dispensaries were, because it was a place where caregivers could take the extra stuff that they produced and easily get rid of it so that they wouldn't be sitting on, like over the limit amounts of products, medical marijuana products. And I see this MMFLA as a direct assault on all them dispensaries. Because let's face it, if you had a dispensary before, I don't know if you're really going to be a part of this new thing. Not after some of the numbers that I've been seeing. All right, so they have requirements for assets, to do a dispensary. I think it's $100,000. I'm not sure, and I don't know if they mention it in here, but it's really high. You might have that in assets. If you could liquefiably, I think you have to have escrow. Like, you have to have a bunch of money. And the thing is if you were operating before, you were doing illegally, you don't really have the documentation to prove where you got that money. There's just so many things about this that just doesn't make it so. Somebody that had a dispensary, say, just down the road over here, around the corner from my house, there's a bunch of people that had dispensaries on, this stretch of road that's just down the road here. Some of these people look like they might have been connected to something bigger and might have been, they might have the assets to do this. Others didn't. The mayor of Flint has been quoted as saying, that they don't agree with the state's licensing regulations because it basically prices most people out of being able to get one of these licensed facilities going. And it's a fact, man. You'll see some of these numbers, a couple of things that discourage people from even trying. But look at this. This is what they have to deal with at the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Office. There's a lot of people that do want to try to get these licenses. And there's also a lot of people that are putting applications in just to stay alive as long as they can. And I think they have a deadline in September coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and read this shit because I want to get out of here. I don't even care about this story. What I am seeing though is that the timer has been set, and there is a deadline in September, and I'm sure they're going to make another deadline after that. But what they've already they drew a line in the sand, and they're like, okay, now you have to be a licensed facility and blah blah blah, and you'll see what that entails in a minute. But you also can't sell product that hasn't been tested at a licensed lab. So we don't know what's going to happen. You know, like if you just got your dispensary approved today, there's no labs approved yet. And even if there was, you don't have product that was grown in a licensed grow facility to even get tested. So if sometime, I don't know when, I can't predict exactly when this gap is going to happen, but at some point we're going to see there's going to be a problem with having existing medical marijuana products on your shelf. You know, Michigan, you know they're not going to let any of that happen. 4 medical marijuana businesses on Thursday became the first in Michigan to receive operating licenses from the state licensing board. 4 businesses, man. The approved businesses include a provisioning center and processor in Ann Arbor, a Chesaning business, which received 4 separate grow licenses, and a transporter in Lansing. The state's medical marijuana licensing board denied a license to a provisioning center in Adrian and tabled an application from a provisioning center in Morenci. Ann Arbor Provisioning Center Can Arbor and processor Arbor Kitchen was among the facilities granted an operating license. Being among the first medical marijuana businesses to receive a license is an honor, owner James Daly said, and, quote, not a responsibility we take lightly. Quote, we look forward to continued work with LARA and ensure a safe and efficient transition to Michigan's new medical marijuana market, Daly said about the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. VB Chesaning will be able to cultivate up to 6,000 plants with 4 growth licenses it received Thursday, Chief Operating Officer Jason Pasco said. Okay, so there's your facility that's going to grow the plants. Grow some plants. It's not going to be enough plants for the whole program. He expects the company will apply for more licenses in the near future. So he said this will very quickly become a commercial market, and we're prepared to be a part of that, Pasco said. The businesses approved for the state operating licenses still have a couple of hurdles to clear, said the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation Director Andrew Brispo. To obtain their state licenses, businesses must pay a regulatory assessment of $48,000. And provisioning centers must have all their products tested by a state-approved testing facility before selling them. The trouble is, the board has yet to approve an operating license for a testing facility. Now, this article here, when you're talking about that assessment fee, it's per license. So you're talking about this guy here that got 4 licenses so he can get that 6,000 plants. 4 licenses, that's almost $200,000. That's 190 what? 2468 $192,000 for assessment, regulatory assessment fees, which again over here says the money is used to pay for the state bureau that regulates the medical marijuana industry. You mean LARA? If you audit LARA, they're probably sitting on like $30 million or whatever they didn't give to Oakland County to buy more raid equipment. So LARA's not hurting for money. And to give them $48,000 just for a license assessment is ridiculous. There's no way that processing a license should cost $48,000. I mean, it's a long process and the applications are ridiculous, but come on. No. This is ridiculous. Bristol expects testing facilities will be up for operating licenses on the August meeting agenda, which is expected to be the biggest yet. Whatever. Until then, the state is trying to help facilities think through how they'll make the transition from unlicensed to licensed. More like, how are they going to make it through the gap before they actually get licensed and tested by licensed facility products? That, I mean, and by the way, you still have to pay the assessment fee. You have to, if too many months go by, you're going to be expected to pay your taxes on money you don't even have yet. So I don't understand this, man. This is not making any sense how they expect this to go anything but crazy rocky. And probably by the end of the year, I don't know when, guys, I'm not sure, but because of all this, at some point, there's not going to be anywhere to get any medical marijuana. If you don't have a caregiver, you're not going to be able to just go to a dispensary and buy any medical marijuana products. It's just how it is, according to everything I'm seeing here. There's no way you're going to be able to pull this off without that being true. And not to mention, even after they start getting to the point where it's like, okay, we have some dispensaries that are actually, that we actually have a flow of regulated cannabis products at, it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be even, 1/100th of the amount of dispensaries we have right now. And that's not my opinion. That's just crunching the numbers that we're seeing here based on, they've had since, the application process started until now, almost 2 years, and they don't have anything going on. They have nothing going on. What does this say up here? 4 medical marijuana businesses have been approved. That's it. And to speak on that, Brisboe says there's going to be a period of time when they're going to need to go through that testing process and entering all that information into the statewide monitoring system. That's going to be very hard to get done in the space of a single day. So I think they should expect that there may be some disruption. Come on, man. Once the facilities are in operation, they'll have to renew their licenses annually and be subject to inspections at least twice a year by the state and Bureau of Fire Services, he said. Does anybody really want one of these licenses, man? How in the fuck is any of this profitable? It doesn't sound very profitable. All right, so not including those seeking operating licenses, the board also approved applications for 15 of 19 businesses that sought pre-qualification Thursday. Now, all pre-qualification means is you go through the application and you fill it out as best as you can and churn it in, and then they work with you from there. As in, these 15 to 19 businesses are going to get worked with to try to get the rest of their application filled out. The board cited applicants' non-disclosure of criminal and arrest histories as apparent involvement in recreational marijuana sales when it denied the applications. I do remember the first denial, and it was because the guy had a misdemeanor possession charge back in the day, and it had since been taken care of and was supposedly off of his record by the time, his application got processed at LARA. Well, he didn't mention it because he didn't think it was, he probably didn't even fucking remember it. But he definitely didn't mention it because he didn't think it was going to be a factor. Turns out it was a factor, and they denied his application over it. Now, I personally think it's bullshit. Mitch McConnell's farm bill and medical marijuana license requirements and all these places that say, oh, you can get a license to legally do something with hemp or marijuana just as long as you didn't have a felony for doing anything like that before. How does that drug law reform? It's not. You're not admitting that the law was wrong in the first place. You're still saying that somebody that did something with weed that got considered a felon in the past, you're still saying that they're pretty much a felon. Felonies should never involve a situation where there's no victim. First of all, that should just be like, duh. Why would we put a scar on somebody's fucking life as if they're a felon for a fucking marijuana crime? Oh yeah, because the drug war is bullshit. Anyway, that shouldn't be a reason to deny somebody a license, but it is, and they keep doing it. Quote, we are approving medical marijuana applications, not recreational, board chairman Rick Johnson said. You know, and he's the corrupt one that used to be a lobbyist, I think. Don't quote me on that. License application or applicants who operated existing business and submitted applications before February 15th have until September 15th to obtain a license without risking their ability to obtain a license by continuing to operate without one. So they're saying that if you don't have a license by September 15th, you got to shut it down, or you probably won't get one. That's going to be a highly risky thing to do. So September 15th is that new deadline. You know, that it used to be in June. Now it's you had to have your app in before February 15th. I don't know, but the bottom line is this: they're gonna tell you later on exactly, you know, how it's gonna go down, and I'm gonna guess, because there's not gonna be anywhere to buy medical marijuana, so I'm gonna have to take a guess and say that Michigan is gonna do the right thing again and extend these temporary rules or rewrite the temporary rules to still accommodate a lot of these businesses that are waiting for the application process. Or not. They might not. You never know. They might just be like, you know what, we're going to make this a hard deadline this time, and, you know, fuck it. This is where we start kicking out the old. Like, if you know, we didn't get to your application, it's our fault. Oh well. Oh well. Pack it up, close it down, or get arrested. And to me, I think either one is just as likely as the other, because where the first one, they really do want to try to license as many people as they can. But on the second one, they also know who they don't want to license. I'm guessing they probably already looked into it and they're like, oh, we really don't want to give licenses to these people or this guy over here. So let's just act like we didn't get to the fucking application. There it is. It's that easy, because there is a lot of applications. Quote, we don't even have an opportunity to review them and to do a site inspection and present them to the board if they haven't done that. So we will not get to all of them. And that was right out of Brispow's mouth. The 10-stage application process that medical marijuana entrepreneurs have undertaken includes a $6,000 application fee, a review by a contract investigation firm, and an intelligence workup by the state police. Wow. I mean, this is the same kind of shit right there, you know. You're getting looked at as if you're about to fill out a, you know, application to go work at the FBI. It's ridiculous. The Bureau is reviewing and processing hundreds of lengthy applications under the 2016 law to ensure they meet benchmarks, including high moral character, integrity, and reputation. You don't have to do this for any other business license there is. There's no other business license on the face of the earth where they have these things worried about your moral character, integrity, and reputation. It simply doesn't. And financial abilities and credit score and your wife's credit score and your kids' credit scores, and it's just this application is insanely intrusive and invasive. The board's Thursday approvals marked a moment in which, quote, the newborn licensed medical marijuana industry learned to crawl, said Rick Thompson, founder of Michigan Cannabis Business Development Group. But the industry is still not where it should be, Thompson said, as businesses work to complete the application process before the September deadline. Quote, today was historic, but illustrates how far we have yet to go as much as it represents how far we have come in the process, he said in a statement. Well, it doesn't look like we've came very far at all. And what we have to go is we're probably looking at next year to try to like get people online to even, for this to even be working at all. Can anybody tell me? I mean, we got these people in Chesaning that are about to start popping off, 6,000 plants. It's the month is the 7th month. So somewhere around the first of the year, their harvest is going to come in. What are they, this is just weird. I don't see anything but a major, major gap coming for all kinds of reasons. And who knows when they're going to pull the rug out from under what's already going on as far as dispensaries go. But people are going to need their medicine, man. And I've heard, Briscoe and others at LARA and other, people that wrote and support the law, the MMFLA, talking about, well, people will just have to find a caregiver until then. That's not how, it's not that simple, or everybody would have a caregiver. There wouldn't be no reason to even have dispensaries if you could just like if a caregiver was allowed to transfer to any patient, or if a patient was allowed to transfer from patient to patient, we wouldn't have to worry about it. And furthermore, the dispensaries should just be allowed to handle overage from caregivers. I know you don't want to hear that, but we're going to have some serious supply issues somewhere along the line. The operating licenses approved Thursday are the first in Michigan, but the state to date has approved 40 out of nearly 594 pre-qualification applications filed since December. The board has denied 14. Businesses also must pass a facility inspection to get licenses. I don't disagree with a lot of the regulations per se, but there is a lot of over the top ones, and it's like they assume that you're gonna, do things that are way above and beyond, and it's just annoying. But anyway, of the 9 denials issued prior to Thursday's meeting, applicants have filed appeals on 7. And, this other article that came out that I seen recently, it's kind of a, I don't know if this is an opinion piece, but it's got a lot of facts in it. And this might give you a better idea of why a lot of people are not going to get licensed. A lot of people are going to live in areas that don't have medical marijuana available, period. Other than the caregiver, patient model, you're going to have to get in your car and drive to where there is places. So anyway, let's just read some of this. By Paula Schmidt. License applications are not accepted unless the municipality in which it is located has adopted an ordinance authorizing that type of facility or opted in. According to David Harns, Public Information Officer for LARA, potential licensees are being delayed by an extensive application process, including extensive financial history checks, followed by criminal background check. Applicants' past financial history could be complicated if they own or a current operation, because such operations are still under federal law illegal and therefore must operate on a cash basis, without access to financial institutions or record keeping associated with typical banking. If an applicant doesn't disclose criminal history in the initial application and is found later, that too will delay licensing according to LARA documents. Applicants often turn in over 1,000 pages of bank account statements and tax records. The result is a very lengthy, complex review to properly conduct these investigations. So they're talking a lot about the taxes and what they're going to do with it, because that's really the state. The state is like, hey man, we're gonna be banking on this taxes. We're expecting about $74 million. So that's $24 million in the taxes for the assessments, I believe, and then $50 million from sales. So it's just crazy. On June 6th, in light of the proposal to legalize the general use of marijuana being placed on the November ballot, the Genesee County Board of Health passed a resolution opposing the measure, citing health and societal risk associated with proposed legalization of marijuana for general use, which is baffling. It's astounding that the Genesee County Board of Health cares so much about, your health when it comes to marijuana, but they don't give a shit about your health when the city and state poisons your water with lead and copper and who knows whatever else the fuck is in the water. But it's okay. We're worried about you, so we're going to tell you that we're going to arrest you if we catch you smoking weed. And by the way, Flint, which is Genesee County's big city, they decriminalized marijuana a long time ago. But yet they still act like it's illegal. And if you ask the cops, they're like, oh yeah, we can enforce it. It's still against the state law and it's still against federal law. As if they're federal cops or something. Anyway, so far in Genesee County, the only municipalities which have opted in are Montmorris Township and the city of Burton. So we have people that have opted out. Like with this one, you don't even have to opt out. On the MMFLA, you automatically are opted out unless you opt in, which means you provide people with licenses and guidance. So you don't have to opt out. Opting out is just you being a dick, telling your people that live in your town that you hate them. But that would be Grand Blanc, Atlas Township, and the village of Goodrich. They hate you. If you're a medical marijuana patient in those towns, they don't have no use for you. And then Flushing Township said in January, as they opted out of Public Act 281. That's the one that declares that local municipalities can license and regulate 5 types of medical marijuana facilities at their discretion. Specifically, Flushing Township's resolution prohibits the operation of marijuana facilities. It does not, however, affect or regulate marijuana grown by individual licensed caregivers in that township, which is what I try to tell people everywhere. Like, just go ahead and get a fucking medical marijuana card and start growing 12 plants. All right, don't get in trouble, doing it outside or something. But I mean, it's probably a little bit harder than you think it is, but it is easy. Just get a book and learn how to do it and do it. We gotta get more people growing their 12 plants. That's all there is to this. That's the only way we're gonna get away from all this bullshit. Is everybody just starts growing their own weed. What are they gonna do about that? There's almost 300,000 people that have a medical marijuana card in Michigan. There's only like 40,000 caregivers. Come on, man. We can do better. But yeah, you can't opt out of the caregiver-patient model system. There's been places that tried it. You can't do it. You can't just go kick in someone's door and be like, we don't like marijuana. Well, it's the law that I can grow 12 plants with a medical marijuana card at my residential house. It's fucking annoying, man. Quote, we took the position of formally opting out and passing a resolution so it would be clear to everyone that we're not in favor of legalizing medical marijuana, Flushing Township Supervisor Frederick Thorsby said. We're not going to provide any distribution centers. Well, I guess that you dislike the distribution centers being, people basically selling weed to each other. Because that's kind of what happens when you don't provide facilities. You know why that happens? Because not everybody that smokes weed can jump in a fucking car and drive 50 miles to where there is a facility. So all this is all a big gift to the black market that they always bitch about. Oh, there's, you get all this medical, it's not medical marijuana if it's sold in a Ziploc baggie with a Sharpie name on it and nobody tested it in a lab and it doesn't have like the information on it that says that it has this amount of this and that amount of that, so we don't know what the proper dose is or how strong it is. You know what? All that shit that you're saying, and oh, we don't get any tax money off it because these people selling to each other. All those complaints are just solved easily by having a facility where you can go and buy medical marijuana. And the cops don't have to run around town busting people at the liquor store parking lot or at the corner selling dime bags, because you'll have a place where people go do that and the cops will know where that's all being done. Furthermore, dispensaries do not bring crime to areas. Study after study has shown that it actually is a reduction in crime when there's dispensaries in the neighborhood. So that was that video was taken down. I took it down because at the end I was kind of I got a little bit, I kind of got a little emotional, and I lost my train of thought and just kind of turned it into a little bit of a rant session where I basically yelled at people in Genesee County municipalities that didn't opt in to the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. But really, you know, that was kind of misguided. I really don't have a problem with anybody that don't like this bill. And you'll see why. I mean, obviously, I'm against this bigger corporatization of the marijuana industry as a whole. As far as medical marijuana in Michigan goes, they had the opportunity to solve one of the problems that they've always complained about with the regular Medical Marijuana Act that was passed in 2008, which is the fact that caregivers have overage, which means they are allowed to produce more cannabis than they're allowed to actually have for them and their patients. So this created overage, which created a marketplace for the overage, which was, you know, which kind of manifested itself in dispensaries, which weren't allowed by law. So the problem was, what do we do about that? And the state decided not to address that. They just totally ignored it. They never mentioned the overage. They never mentioned caregivers' overage. When asked, they would just be like, well, you know, we're not, they won't tell you anything about it. So, you know, and we've seen that one facility already where it's like 6,000 plants, and then we're about to look at another place where it's like a industrial park for basically grow operations. And who knows how many plants will be produced in that facility or facilities. But the bottom line is 6,000 plants. It's not a really big dent in the 3 million-ish plants that are growing in Michigan at all times to maintain the medical marijuana program that has been going for 10 years. So they're basically criminalizing anybody that's still operating that dispensary model where they get their products from the overage of caregivers. That's illegal. That has been illegal the whole time. It was allowed and kind of ignored, and even allowed with licenses in certain municipalities or with the blessing of the municipality and the police, but not anymore. That kind of thing is highly discouraged. And furthermore, so, you know, when it comes down to it, there's two different reasons why municipalities weren't coming on board with the medical marijuana, the licensing of facilities in their municipality. One was that they just don't like marijuana, and they make up whatever excuse they can to act like they didn't like the regulations. And that's what they did in Vienna Township, which is where they hold the Cannabis Cup every year. Twice a year, actually. The Cannabis Cup is in Vienna Township 2 times a year. But they don't want medical marijuana facilities. And their excuse is because it's just, you know, too complicated. The state didn't answer any of their questions as to why it looks like it's not regulated that good. And when I heard this, I'm just like, what are you talking about? This is the most stringent regulation package. The application process is so hard that only 4 application businesses has been granted. So here's some stuff out of that article. All 7 board members voted no. And at least one local businessman is calling this a missed opportunity. All right, quote, the state may come up with something that makes us either modify our agreements. They got to get active. The state has to move forward. So here's Township Supervisor Joseph Rizk. He just basically blamed Lansing for not answering questions he might have had about Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? All you got to do is read the public acts, and there won't be any questions left. It's the most regulated medical marijuana thing there is. I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyway, quote, I don't think we would be a very good board by saying, sure, let's jump into it for the money when we have all these other questions that we can't get answers to. I'm sure you could have got the answers, Township Clerk Cynthia Bryan. You didn't want the answers. You didn't care. You didn't even try. Bryan says the board may revisit the issue after they get more clarity from the state on how the industry is going to regulate it. Not a very good job writing this article. You missed that B on there, going to be regulated. Let me just say this. You got to read the damn thing. You can't just ask somebody that just hands you a, like, I don't know, 80-page thick booklet of regulations, and they say, here, you tell me if you guys want to set up these businesses or not. And then you're like, you don't even read it, and you just set it on the table, and you're like, well, I have a bunch of questions. How is this going to be regulated? You know how that just doesn't sound very like you really care. It just sounds like you don't care about how anything. You don't care about nothing. You're just going to say that you asked a question and they didn't answer it. They don't have to answer it. You have to look at the regulations. So here's somebody, quote, let us not hastily pass up what could turn out to be an incredible opportunity here, noted Joe DeWitt. And one more thing about that statement back here, we're not going to just jump into it for the money. Are you serious? Did you see the amounts of money that you could have already had just getting applications from people? Oh my God, the money is ridiculous. It's like hand over fist money. Anyway, this guy Joe DeWitt, who says let's not pass up on a possibly great, incredible opportunity, he leases out Auto City Event Center for the pro-marijuana event, the Cannabis Cup, every year, and calls tonight's vote a missed opportunity. Quote, I'm very disappointed right now because Vienna Township does have the wherewithal and ability to police this property and be a blueprint and a poster child to the industry as a whole. And that's another thing. I think the township was wondering, like, how do we enforce the rules? And it's like, man, they give you way more than enough money to enforce the rules. Trust me. And you can even throw in some more money on it if you want. And you'll see that right here. So the other way that people are opposing this, and obviously the way I'm opposing it, is that this is just a ridiculous, overburdensome regulation package where the fees and the assessment fees and the asset requirements, it's just designed so that if you don't have already way more money than all these things I just mentioned cost, which those things I just mentioned could run you anywhere from $200,000 to $1 million or more. So if you're looking at getting into this business, you better be starting out with like $1 million to like $5 million minimum just to get up off the ground. Now Flint, they didn't like the ordinance or the regulation package. They're working on an ordinance. They're kind of dragging their feet. This is from March of 2018, and I was at this meeting, at the city council meeting, not the special meeting, but actually I was at the city council meeting that they were supposed to discuss this, but they weren't ready yet, so they had to schedule the special meeting, which I couldn't end up making it to that. But anyway, I've been trying to stay up with this Flint shit. Mayor Karen Weaver was in attendance at this meeting to express her concern of how the money would be generated from taxes from Medical Marijuana Center would be distributed to the city. Quote, the way the money is broken down up right now, allows for 40% going to the state, 30% goes to the county, 25 goes to the city, and 5 goes to the sheriff's office. But the city has the burden of policing the issue. So that's kind of what they were saying in Clio. Like, Vienna Township is this big area. Clio police only patrol a little tiny island in the middle of it. And then there is no police for the rest of the township, other than we have state police driving around all the time, and there's the county police has an actual police station right in the township building. So I guess they're trying to say, hey, why don't our local cops get any money? And it's like, as far as Flint goes, they will, because Flint's going to charge fees and stuff. What are you going to do with all that money? Come on. All right, so Weaver said, but, you know, I'm still agreeing with her to a certain degree. I'm just a little bit like, why does the cops always have to get money for this? They should get less money. They already get, how much money do they get right now for total prohibition? Can you answer me that? Is that what you're trying to cover for? You're like, oh, you know, with total prohibition, as long as we kiss the ass of the state police and the federal police, then they give us money for enforcing drug laws, which means putting people in jail for marijuana. You don't believe it? Go look at the docket in Flint. It's full of marijuana cases every day. So I don't disagree with her, but I don't like this idea where you keep begging for money for the cops. They don't fucking need it. They already get money. They already get paid. You're acting like, oh, they're going to lose so much money because of the forfeiture thing, and they're going to lose money because they don't get to lock people up and get grant money from the feds. Oh, what are we going to do? It's like, who cares? How about just hire less cops? Let's do that. We don't need all the cops. And you know what? You're in Flint. Give me a break, man. Do you even have enough cops? What do you got? Your cops are just driving around all day doing nothing. I mean, last time I heard, and I just lived 6 miles from Flint, is I heard some gunshots. And I heard it takes like over 5 hours to get a cop there if someone shoots up your house. I mean, how crazy is that? If somebody breaks in your house while you're not home and steals all your shit, and you get home and call the cops, they usually don't come for at least 24 hours on that kind of call where there's no imminent danger. If there's imminent danger, they're still not going to be there until the imminent danger is no longer a thing. You better trust me on that one. But if you're someone loitering at a liquor store smoking a doobie, you better believe they're going to pull in and try to fuck with you there. So anyway, Weaver said we need to get that changed and make sure that Flint gets its fair share of the money from the taxes coming in. So let me get this straight. Mayor Weaver of Flint, a city that's been getting shit on by Lansing for as long as I've been alive, is expecting them to change the way that the tax breakdown goes on the money that they get from Flint for overall revenue. Come on, man, please. Please. We're stretching our public safety resources, but we don't get the money. You're acting like marijuana is supposed to pay for everything. Once again, I'm getting sick of this repetitive theme coming out of government. Oh, marijuana, it didn't pay for enough. It needs to pay for more. No, it don't. Why don't you go figure out who ain't paying their fair share and get the money from them? Marijuana should only pay for what marijuana does and costs. Anything else is just, you know, people that you've been oppressing for the last 80 years saying, okay, we'll kick you back a little bit for letting us have our fun. But this is getting ridiculous. We're not paying the cops to arrest people for breaking the laws or the rules of the Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. That's up to you all, man, that made the fucking rules to figure out how you pay for that shit. We need to talk to state legislators to get our voice heard and our fair share. All right, so after all that bullshit, then here's what I really agree with her on. Let's just talk about this one. Another concern the mayor shared relates to the liquid assets required by the state to operate a medical marijuana facility. The requirement ranges from $150,000 to $500,000. Quote, "This is a state law that the city of Flint does not agree with," Weaver said. "The little person is cut out of this. It does not support the startup of small business owners. Also, the fee structures, $54,000 will go to the state of, and city of Flint will only get $5,000. Again, that's from a state standpoint. So whatever. I do agree with her though that these regulations and fees and all this shit, this is not designed for anybody that has an existing marijuana business to get involved with, because just filling out the application, you're going to run into so many places where you're like, oh yeah, I was kind of doing this, and that, you know, you don't have really ways to prove how you got all that money that you're supposed to have. You know, $48,000 for a freaking assessment fee for one license. Where are you going to prove that you just pulled that out of your ass from? If you were running an illegal, even in Michigan, dispensary for the last 6-7 years, where are you going to say you got all that money from? If you were a grower and you weren't ever supposed to make any money above board, where are you going to tell them you got that $48,000 from per license? See, I don't get this. I don't understand how anybody. Where are you going to get a business loan from? You're going to go to fucking Huntington Bank or the freaking Frankenmuth Credit Union or some shit? Dort Federal Credit. Where are you going to go get your fucking loan for over $1 million for a marijuana business? Can anybody tell me that? Please? Usually a startup business is something you could just borrow the money from a few friends and family members and then get the rest from the bank. There's no way anybody that ain't paid in the shade is going to have the money for any of these licenses. Unless you have like a hedge fund behind you or something. And hey, I'm a really good producer. I have, 30 plus years experience growing. So if anybody wants to hedge fund my ass, I'll open one of these beasts up. Fuck it, I'll grow fucking 30,000 plants. I don't give a shit. Anyway, I don't like these licenses because of a lot of the stipulations. Like if I would have to give up being a caregiver. So I'd be like all my patients like, sorry guys, I know y'all quit doing fucking opioids and quit big pharma and have a way healthier lifestyle because of cannabis, but you know what? Good luck getting weed from however else you can get it, and they're pretty much used to not worrying about it. I don't think they would know what to do. Before I met them, they were probably buying weed from some biker that they've known for 50 years or whatever. So, yeah, that's all I got on this. One more thing. Now, when you talk about the corporate takeover, like I said earlier, the requirement in Michigan to run all the shit that was going on before now, up until now, and right now, currently, we're talking about like 3 million plants, on paper. Like, that's how many plants are probably grown in Michigan in the medical marijuana program. It's a lot of plants. All right, so it's going to take a while for these licenses, no matter how many plant facilities these people are putting together to take that, number down. And, granted, these are caregiver numbers that I'm going off of estimates of. But a lot of that was the extra stuff that manifested itself in to the dispensaries that were already in existence before the law was made in 2016. So just keep that in mind. Caregivers were producing anywhere from 2.8 to 3 million plants that would in turn supply the patients that had caregivers, plus the dispensaries that took care of the patients that didn't have caregivers. So that was, you're not going to... There's still a lot of caregivers growing, and now they're just like, what do we do with all this extra weed? That's the big question. And the fact that Lansing purposely didn't do nothing about that, it makes a leering question about how are they going to actually shut down these caregivers? That's what everybody should be asking. And let me just tell you guys this. A lot of caregivers are not really willing to just go work at some fucking weed factory for $10 an hour. You're going to find a lot of people probably that will, but I'm going to guess that they're pretty not that good of a grower. All right. If they think $10 an hour is worth giving up their caregiver card for. But anyway, I'm going to just go ahead and watch this Harvest Park video, and then we'll check out what that's about. So, yeah. Harvest Park. A medical marijuana company that received licensing approval Thursday from the state has plans to hire up to 170 people in the Lansing region for a variety of positions. Green Peak Innovations is eager to fill the jobs quickly so it can start growing, processing, and transporting marijuana in and from New Windsor Township facility by the end of this year, said Jeff Radway, its CEO. We're tremendously excited, said Radway, who declined to reveal the names of investors he's working with. Aha. We're starting our hiring efforts immediately. The company has investors from the Lansing area, Radway said, and has secured 25 acres of land in the township within Harvest Park, a 131-acre medical marijuana business park. On its website, Harvest Park is described as the largest medical marijuana business park east of Mississippi. So that's all really interesting. And like I said, all the way through this whole process, I've been telling you about this cannabis corporate takeover. Yeah, of course, these people are really professional. They're the suit and tie. They got their business plans all hammered out. And it's so easy to see how somebody that's just a huge investor, or not the person, the front man for the investors. It's so easy to see how they can pick somebody that's like, okay, this person's interested in marijuana. He's squeaky clean. And then all the money just goes right through them. So that's how you do it. They don't want to give it to me, I guess. And I don't want it. I don't want to do one of these facilities. And the thing about Harvest Park is it's just a place where you can get space to start a licensed grow. So like, they just sold 6 of the 17 lots last week, and it's probably to people that have already at least stage 1 on license, so they know that they're basically just finishing up the little details to make sure they get their license, and then boom, they'll be on the grow. So they're gonna have to keep popping off with these grows until they have literally hundreds of them to kind of make this takeover actually start looking like a takeover. But someone like this, they're talking about having 19 dispensaries. They have plans for 12 large grow facilities, 1 processor, and 19 dispensaries. So that's just one company in this place. It's called Green Peak Innovations. It's renting space in Harvest Park, and there could be several companies like that. And 12 large grow facilities could be like, that could be up to almost 100,000 plants. Believe it. So you can never tell. That's just a wild speculative guess, but that's kind of what the takeover's starting to look like. And I don't really, like I said, man, I don't have a problem with these kind of people getting involved. And I think it's a big industry and there's room for everybody. But of course, that's not how politicians and that's not how banks and stuff like that. They don't like that. They don't like the the many small. They like the small amount of big. And the smaller number and the bigger, that's the better. I don't know what else to say about all this. You know, you can form your own opinion in the comments section. Like I asked for many times for somebody that's on the other side of, you know, and like I said, I'm not totally like a hater of this corporate takeover or these big, you know, people coming in. But what I don't like is that they're the ones that set the rules. They're the ones that made the fees and all that so high that no startups could just jump in. Unless you had these stacks of investors behind you. And we know who made the rules. It was those very investors that made these rules so that it was like this. I mean, this is clearly an orchestrated takeover. It's just super slow motion. And when I say takeover, right now they're like, hey, if you're a caregiver, you're not going to the dispensary to sell them overage. And that's going to keep on getting more and more. They're going to keep on getting more authoritarian and loud, and then they're going to start setting examples, I'm guessing. And I don't know how long that's going to take before that happens. All right, I'm out of here, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And sorry I had to re-upload this video if you already watched it. Have a good one.